What's up, Southside Youth? Hey, I hope you're having a great morning at middle school, whether at the Redstone or the Commerce campus. We're so excited that you're here. But hey, today we're going to carry on our story of Daniel. So if you were here last Sunday in Big Church, we talked all about Daniel, and you met Daniel and his three friends, and they were given new names, and those names were names that didn't represent exactly who they were and what they thought about God. But in Daniel, we see some really interesting topics. We see what does it look like to stand up for your faith when everything around you is falling apart. When everything around you is saying, hey, we want you to live this way, but God, we know He wants us to live here. What do you do? How do you stand up in those situations? Well, today in Daniel 3, we're going to find a crazy situation. In Daniel 3, we're going to see that the king of Babylon is going to make a decree. And that decree is this, that he's going to make a giant gold statue of himself. And what he wants everyone to do is he wants them to come to it and bow down to it. He wants them to come to it and worship it. The king declares, as soon as the trumpet's blown, you have to bow down. So all of the people of Babylon come around this giant gold statue. I mean, it's got to be impressive. It's this massive golden statue. The trumpets blow, and the whole crowd bows down. If you've ever been to a Georgia game, or if you've ever been to a big college stadium before, you can imagine just thousands of people bowing down all at the same time. What a spectacle to see. But in the midst of this giant wave of people bowing down, something stood out. Three young men decide to stand up and say, no, we're going to not worship false gods. We're going to worship the one true God. Daniel 3 teaches us something important. The world at times, guys, is going to come after you. And they're going to say, hey, we want you to live this way. But really, God has a better plan. If we trust God and if we put our faith in God, then we can follow Him, even when it seems hard. In Daniel 3, I want you to hear this statement real quick. King Nebuchadnezzar realizes that Daniel's three friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, aren't bowing down to the idol that he's created. Nebuchadnezzar finds the three men and he says this, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, is it true that you don't serve my God or worship the gold statue I've set up? Now, if you're ready, when you hear the sound of the horn, the flute, the zither, the lyre, the harp, the drum, and every other musical instrument, fall down and worship the statue I've made. Worship the statue I've made. But if you don't worship it, you will immediately be thrown into the furnace of a blazing fire. And who is God who can rescue you from my power? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to the king, Nebuchadnezzar, we don't need to give you an answer to this question. If the God we serve exists, then He can rescue us from the furnace of blazing fire. And He can rescue us from the power of you, the king. But even if He does not rescue us, we want you as the king to know that we will not serve your gods or worship the gold statue you've set up. Even if our God has a different plan for our lives, and even if He doesn't save us from the furnace that you're going to throw us into, we know that He is good. And we know that His plan is great. And even if God doesn't do what we would like or what we would hope for, God is great, and we won't worship anyone else but Him. How are we gonna apply that to our lives? How are we gonna take this strong story, this true story that we believe in the Bible, of these three young teenagers that stand up for their faith? How are you gonna apply that to your life? In small group, we're gonna talk about what it looks like to stand up, how we could stand up in our day-to-day lives at school or with our family or with our friends, and get really a good discussion going of how this can affect the way we live. And the story here, I want your small group leaders to take it over. What happens to these three guys? Let's talk about that today in small group. Love you guys. We'll see you next week here at Southside. Bye.